What happens to your body when you quit coffee for about 30 days? Most people think that coffee actually gives them energy. It doesn't. The caffeine in coffee is not stimulating your body. I'll show you how it works. In your brain, you have something called adenosine. Maybe you might have heard about this before from another compound called ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. And that really is the energy currency of the body. And so we're constantly making this all day long. And then we have this little byproduct called adenosine. And so as it builds up, it gives the brain signals like, okay, you used up your energy. It's time to wind down, get tired, and go to sleep. And so adenosine has a lot to do with the sleep mechanism and even increasing melatonin. The caffeine in coffee has a very similar chemistry to this molecule right here. So it can fit into that receptor in your brain and actually inhibit the signals for sleep. It's not really giving you any energy. It's not stimulating you. The problem is when you start drinking coffee over and over and over, then it takes more and more caffeine to create the same effect. Like in college, I started off with a little bit of coffee and then a little bit more and a little bit more to the point where I had to drink massive amounts of Cuban coffee to stay awake, which then burnt out my adrenals because it was doing everything very artificially and I had no clue at the time. And so when someone comes off coffee, there's going to be a withdrawal period of time. And I'm going to go through what happens throughout the month if you were to get off coffee. Day 1 and day 2, if you just stop drinking coffee right now, within about 16 hours, you might notice you get a headache. And that is because we're getting a decrease in this thing called dopamine. And so without that stimulation, dopamine goes down and your head starts hurting. Day 3 to day 5, you're still going to feel a little irritable, but your craving is going to be just a little bit less because the dopamine is starting to adapt. However, you may crave other things like sugar or fatty foods or something like that. Remember, dopamine is kind of like a pleasure hormone and it makes you feel good. So without it, you're going to feel kind of dull. And this is why dopamine is behind a lot of addictions. And things with caffeine also are highly addictive. In the next phase right here, between day 6 and 7, your body is starting to get used to this and you're going to find your sleep is going to do a lot better because now you have a little more adenosine to trigger this process right here. And also as a side note, caffeine really inhibits the REM part of the sleep. So your REM sleep is going to be a little bit better at this point. And also you might find that your cortisol levels are a little bit lower. So you're just going to have a little bit better quality sleep at this point. I want to do a short FAQ on my organic black seed oil, which has been used for thousands of years across many different civilizations in their food and medicine, from its antioxidant properties to helping to support normal cell function and very unique different phytonutrients that can address many different conditions. This is Turkish origin, non-GMO, vegan, cold pressed, 100% pure. Check it out and please let us know of your successes. All right, from day 8 to 10, now is where you're going to notice your mood is going to start to be a lot better. So you're going to find that if you were before kind of on a emotional roller coaster, that's going to kind of even out because you're going to have less crashes because this receptor is starting to be more receptive and more sensitive. And so that means the dopamine is going to start leveling off too. At day 11 through 14, you're going to notice your cognitive function doing much better. Now, here's the thing. Caffeine doesn't really increase cognitive function. It affects cognitive function in a negative way, but it really only makes you alert. Because sometimes when people drink coffee, they think, wow, I have better memory, I'm more alert, I have more focus. No, the caffeine is just making you more alert, but it's not really increasing your memory, it's not increasing your focus, and it's not increasing your concentration. But because you're alert, you might feel like you have better cognitive function, but you don't. And even drinking coffee for a long period of time starts to decrease the cognitive function. But you're going to find that it's going to start to improve like mid-month. Right around here, day 15 to 21 is where some really interesting things happen. Dopamine at this point is going to be back to almost normal as far as the sensitivity of the receptor. So this means that you're no longer going to have this need to drink coffee. That addiction is pretty much gone at this point. And then at the last stage, between day 22 and 30 is when you're going to really notice the big benefits. You're going to have way more energy. Why? Because you're going to have more availability for this to actually go into this, and you're going to generate more energy from the sleep. So you have to realize how much caffeine affects your sleep, indirectly affecting your energy. I mean, as soon as caffeine goes into your body, it takes between 4 to 12 hours before it breaks down. So it could still be in your body when you're sleeping, and this happens to a lot of people, especially those people that are really sensitive to it. If you take a look at the coffee plant or a tea plant that naturally has caffeine, sometimes people want to know, like, what is the purpose of caffeine in a plant? Well, actually, it's a chemical pesticide. Yes, it paralyzes insects. But in humans, it's not going to do that. It's going to trigger stress in a certain adaptive way. It's called a hormetic effect, which basically is a little bit of stress to cause your body to adapt to that. But it's going to have this different effect on humans, okay? It's just going to block this receptor, and then it's going to wake you up more. If you're drinking coffee because you're tired, there are so many things you can do to get actual energy. And I will put a link down below of a video on that. And it's not just food. Talking about just going out in the sun can give you a lot of energy. Exercise, movement can give you a lot of energy. Having the right nutrients, electrolytes, can give you more energy, especially potassium and magnesium. Taking adaptogens like ashwagandha or certain mushrooms like lion's mane, super powerful. Really good inputs, and they're not artificial, so they don't have the side effects. So if you're thinking about coming off coffee, there's a couple things I would recommend. Replacing the coffee with green tea, which has caffeine, but it's a little less. There's a lot of great things in green tea. So just make that first step, okay? It's really easy, and you get some caffeine, but it's not going to be in very large quantities. Then you'd want to gradually shift to herbal teas that are naturally decaffeinated, because a lot of times in the morning, people just like to drink something hot. And if you just completely cut that out, it might be more difficult. So just adding this herbal tea without caffeine would be step 2. And it'll give you some type of substitution. Now, I highly also recommend doing some things to actually create real energy. So maybe in the morning, you take a little sea salt in some water, or magnesium, you can get it in a powder, or electrolytes with high amounts of potassium. All of these things should give you a lot of energy, like real energy. But I would also recommend vitamin B1, because out of all the vitamins, I'm not talking about minerals, vitamins B1 is one of the most important for helping you make energy. B1 is kind of like the spark plug that allows you just to make more energy. A really good adaptogen that I like is ashwagandha. That's a great thing for coming off caffeine because it helps make this adaptation smoother. Lemon balm tea is another awesome thing to add in the morning. But a lot of people are so addicted to the caffeine and coffee that they never have a chance to see what it feels like to be without the coffee. It does take a transition. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not easy, but you'll never know unless you do it. I have a free download that I want to give to you. This free download is my daily routine in a checklist. This is a routine that I use every day to feel like I'm 18 years old, even though I'm 60 years old, and I want to give it to you for free. And so there's a little link down below. Click it and definitely download that. The question is how to really increase real energy, not artificially, but for real. And for that information, you should watch this video right here, right now.